The Yukon does not forgive. It remembers every mistake and keeps score in ice. Deep inside that cold wilderness sits a strip of ground old miners whispered about, as if the name itself carried a chill. The Widow's Cut, a place with stories of tunnels folding under weight, shafts flooding without warning, and crews limping home lighter than they arrived or not arriving at all. Snow wraps machines like burial cloth. Wind moves across the flats with a low hiss that sounds like warning. The ground looks calm from a distance, but up close it carries scars. Blackened beams jutting from the rim with words burned in by hands that shook. No gold is worth this. Into that silence came Parker Schnabel, a miner known for pushing goals past the safe line. The plan was simple to say and dangerous to live. Open the cut, hold the line, and prove the legends were either wrong or incomplete. Steel bit frozen soil older than memory. The first bucket pulled free, and the earth gave a slow, hard groan. The kind of sound that turns heads. The dig stopped being ordinary and became a contest against a place that had broken 100 plans before. No bright lights, no soft landings, just hard ground, heavy equipment, and a target bold enough to make seasoned hands go quiet. This ground had sent crews home with empty pockets and heavy hearts for more than a century. It fed campfire tales and kept prospectors away. But time changes tools, and tools change outcomes. New maps, new sensors, new ways to think about old problems. These things can tilt a fight. The Widow's Cut had taken its toll from those who came with courage and luck. This team brought something else: patience, data, and a need to know what waited below. The hunt would not be about a single strike. It would be about hours, inches, choices, and whether the land could be read like a book rather than attacked like an enemy. The North does not hand out easy lessons. It tests in small ways first, then it asks for more. The opening week felt like an exam written by ice and darkness, and every wrong answer came with a cost. Yet the machines kept moving. The crew held a steady pace. The story that once sounded like a curse began to sound like a challenge. The question was not only, is there gold? The question became, can this place be worked in a way the past never allowed? The only way to find out was to keep going and listen to what the ground said next. Mining ice is not the same as mining rock. Ice shifts, ice melts where heat touches it and locks tight where movement is needed most. The Widow's Cut sits on ancient permafrost, a frozen mix of soil and ice that looks steady until it moves like a living thing. Monitors inside the command tent lit the screens with strange shapes. Thermal pulses slid under the site like a heartbeat. Pockets opened and closed in slow motion. Areas warmed and cooled with no warning. The land was not solid. It was breathing. Old journals digitized from a Dawson City museum told the same story in the words of men who worked with lanterns and timber. Wind came from below. The earth swelled. We ran. Not all made it. Those lines were not ghost stories. They were field notes written by people who had little more than guts and guesswork to keep them safe. The first set of shafts flexed in ways shafts should not flex. Timbers popped. Steel made a low sound that no operator likes to hear. Even the ground under the pads felt strange, settling and lifting as if something rolled beneath it. The weather cut in with sharp edges. Temperatures swung across freezing, turning mud to glass and water to knives. Every startup felt like testing a door that might slam shut on the crew's fingers. But the numbers stayed on the whiteboard. 5,000 ounces on paper, quickly lifted to 7,000 as the mark that would make the season count. Raising the target was not a stunt. It was a message to the camp that patience had to carry as much weight as horsepower. No sprint could survive this terrain. Only steady pace, clean checks, and a refusal to panic would work. The cut did not attack with big disasters. It fought in small, clever ways. It stole heat. It bent shafts a little out of line. It made batteries quit too soon and hoses freeze from the inside out. Every hour lost felt like the ground taking a quiet victory. That slow grind can be worse than a dramatic slide because slow grind eats morale. The change in thinking came at the right moment. If the land behaved like a living system, then the work needed eyes that could see through the surface and past the old fear. The choice was made to bring in tools that could read what rock and ice tried to hide. The fight was no longer a strength against resistance. It became a search for the path of the least risk through a place that punished guesswork. The next move would rewrite the map of the cut and bring the past into the present. present with clear lines. Comfort failed first, engines froze. Diesel lines split open along hairline cracks. Hydraulic systems bled into snow that swallowed red fluid like it had been waiting. The sleeping shack canvas tore in the night, and a hard wind rushed through bunks, knocking gear to the floor and filling boots with powder. Batteries turned to bricks, pipes locked solid. The wash plant wanted a run of hours above 35 degrees Fahrenheit to stay alive. The weather offered half that and stole the rest. Machines stood silent and white with frost like gravestones lined in a row. Every fix cost time, and time is the only thing a northern season cannot sell back once it is spent. Morale began to crack the way steel cracks under stress, one hairline at a time. Some voices went quiet, other voices started to shake. The target did not move, and that was both the problem and the point. The ground was not going to give up because a number looked clean on a screen. Parts could not fly in when storms slammed the air. Fuel burned faster than expected because cold cheats math. And yet the work could not stop. The cut was not throwing cave-ins every hour. It was fighting with a slow squeeze. A seized joint here, a skim of ice there, a valve that stuck, a sensor that lied. That kind of fight pushes minds to places where errors are born. The only counter was to slow down decisions and speed up checks. Teeth in the bucket were inspected between passes. Hoses were wrapped and rewrapped. Battery warmers were rotated on a strict clock. No quick fix went untested. The crew broke the day into blocks and attacked, eared each block as if it decided the season. In the tent, maps were marked, erased, and drawn again. The cut had patterns. The trick was to learn them before the patterns turned into injuries. It was clear by the end of that rough stretch that force would not win. The ground did not care how loud the motors ran. It cared about pressure points, thaw lines, and timing. The job now needed a new set of eyes, something that could draw a picture of the unseen. The weather would not change fast enough. The permafrost would not change at all. The plan would have to change, or the season would die a slow, cold death. Help came from the sky. A fleet of drones lifted into the cold air and fanned out over the cut, with LiDAR scanners that fired millions of tiny pulses. Those pulses painted a 3D picture and peeled away brush, crust, and drift like pages from an old book. On the model, a shape appeared that did not match anything on the current plan. It was a vertical shaft, perfectly round, tucked west of the active dig and hidden by collapse and time. Old ledgers pinned to the wall carried a matching line. 1932, winter shift, collapse, 8 presumed gone, shaft sealed. The past had left a mark and then covered it with snow and silence. The new plan was risky and smart at the same time. Do not chase a new cut. Reopen the old. Build a spine of steel around a hole that once swallowed men and make it strong enough to hold a mountain by the collar. Crews worked like surgeons in bitter wind. Collars were set. Beams were welded. Anchors went deep. A hoist rose above the mouth with cables that hummed when the gusts hit. No one trusted the hole even after the checks. Trust has to be earned, and old ground charges full price. The descent began in air that felt too still. Frozen prints marked the path where the last team had climbed. Rusted tools lay in the corners like offerings. Names were carved into the walls, some full, some cut off mid-stroke. At 132 feet, the shaft opened into a cavern that had not seen light in generations. Lamps threw long shadows across quartz veins that crossed the rock like white lightning. Inside those veins lay visible gold, not fine dust, not specks. Edges that flashed back even from across the room. Silence rolled through the crew because silence is what happens when proof walks into the room and sets itself on the table. Work followed fast. A tight, simple sluice was built in hours. Melted snow turned into water lines. Gravel moved by hand to test the system without stressing the ground. The first cleanup delivered weight that changed everything. This was not luck. This was a sign that the plan and the place were finally in agreement. The cavern did not feel friendly, only honest. It had kept its secret. Now it demanded clean work and careful steps in return. A sealed shaft had become a doorway, and the season pivoted through it. The camp fell into a rhythm that did not feel human. 72 hours passed with no full sleep. The wash boxes roared like engines with their own hunger, chewing gravel and spitting treasure. Fine gold dust hung in the air like mist and turned every glove and collar into a glittered mess. Meals were fast, words were fewer, the ledger climbed. By the end of the third day, the total crossed 4,000 ounces, enough to erase debt lines and build fresh plans twice over. Then the power sagged. Backup generators coughed and went quiet. Lights flickered hard enough to make stomachs drop. Pumps slowed as ice crept up hoses like climbing vines. There was no room for panic. Hands grabbed the manual crank on the old pump and turned until water hissed back into the sluice. Metal stuck to skin, but the flow returned. Meanwhile, the deeper scans kept repeating the same surprise. The vein did not stop at the cavern. It turned and ran under the camp. For nearly 2 kilometers, a twisting, bright path locked in stone. Numbers were checked, then checked again. The pattern held. The site earned a new name around a diesel drum fire that night. Fortune's Spine. The old curse name faded, and a new story took its place. The kind of story crews tell in low voices, so the mountain will not think they are bragging. The work did not slow. It sharpened. Every load was weighed in more than ounces. It was weighed in risk. The cut still found small ways to push back. Ice in a valve, a loose fitting, a belt that squealed at the wrong time. But the system held. Exhaustion moved through the camp like weather. Faces went blank, and then came back when the next tray came heavy. Eyes burned, gloves stiffened. Still, the gravel moved. The emotion stayed simple. Keep the boxes fed, keep the lines clear, keep the tally honest. In mining, momentum is a resource just like fuel. Once it is found, it must be protected. Those 3 days built the season's momentum. The mine had a spine. The crew had a pace. The numbers had a path. The legend was no longer about failure. It was about a fight that might finally be fair. Fortune never stays secret. An unmarked drone skimmed low over the camp without a word. Trucks began to idle across the river with faces that did not wave. Stakes appeared along the tree line with colors that did not match any approved line. Helicopters circled overhead, higher than comfortable. Then a government truck rolled in at dawn with inspectors in heavy coats and steady eyes. Papers were requested, gear tags were photographed, boundary maps and survey lines were checked and rechecked. In the Yukon, that level of attention means one thing: a site has gone hot. Paperwork turned into its own battlefield. Calls went out to offices in town and in the cities. Rights were verified. Lines were redrawn on prints and stamped. Everything had to be clean because attention brings pressure, and pressure brings mistakes. Outside the fence, rumors sprinted faster than the truth could lace its boots. Bars in Dawson filled with talk. Fuel stops buzzed. Radio chatter ran on loop. Parker found the last motherlode. Prices on marginal claims jumped. Helicopter traffic doubled. Small outfits pushed too fast, trying to catch a piece of the rush. Inside the camp, the weight of eyes pressed down. One operator walked off mid-shift and never came back that night. Another froze over a broken hydraulic line and stared until a teammate tapped a shoulder. Fatigue makes easy jobs hard, and hard jobs dangerous. Then the ground made a move of its own. An 80-foot slide of frozen shale hit the south ramp and sealed the main access in seconds. It was not the biggest slide on a map, but it was the kind that tears a schedule in half. There was no time for speeches. The dig-out started with shovels, picks, and quiet focus. Dust burned lungs. Ice stung eyes. The opening returned. The structure held barely. Satellite trucks rolled in soon after and parked in the snow. Journalists climbed banks for a view. Old miners flew in from far towns just to stand near the story. Historians drafted headlines before the last tray ran. The legend of the widow's cut had slipped the fence and grown legs of its own. Inside, the same rules still applied. Move gravel. Legends do not put gold on the scale. Work does. The crew kept that truth close and let the noise burn itself out beyond the floodlights. Only 174 ounces stood between the camp and the goal. On paper, that is a small climb. Under sub-zero wind, it is a wall. Every ounce takes time. Every hour feels longer than the last. The final cleanup ran on the coldest night of the season. Frost smoked from breath. Hoses ticked as ice tried to creep back in. The tray count rose slow and steady until the line clicked past 7,000 ounces. There was no blast of music, no long speech, just a quiet nod and a breath held for too many days, finally let go. The call was made to close the claim. Not because it was empty, but because the work felt complete. There is a time to push and a time to protect what has been won. This was the second. The shaft was sealed with care. Gear was broken down methodically. Records were locked and copied. The ground fell silent for a while and then spoke again in a different voice. Low creaks, soft sighs, and small groans that rolled up from deep rock at night. Some called it pressure releasing. Others said the mountain did not like being disturbed. Names do not change sounds. The sounds were there either way. Offers arrived from every direction. Investors wanted a stake, companies wanted rights, studios wanted the story. The estimate in raw value sat in the tens of millions and climbed, but the answer stayed the same. The site remained closed. Not every win needs a sequel. Some places deserve an ending that leaves the ground in peace. Outside the fence, the region changed, as big news always makes regions change. Land prices climbed. Small miners felt large firms leaning in. Fuel stayed high. Gear stayed expensive. The handshake way shrank under paperwork and plans. Drafted in rooms far from snow. The cut had given a season worth framing. The proof sat in bars, vaults, and ledgers. The lesson sat in bones and memory. The team left the site in better shape than it was found, secured and documented against the next hard winter that comes without asking. The story moved from present tense to past tense, but the echo did not fade. The camp roads began to drift over. The steel cooled. The snow took back its shape. The mark left on the map stayed. The widow's cut shifted from curse to challenge to proof. A sealed shaft became a working path because modern eyes turned a dead end into a doorway. Patience beat horsepower when the ground tried to steal heat and minutes. Old notes were treated as data, not fear. A team was built and rebuilt each day through rotation, straight talk, and steady hands. The land kept its own clock, so knowing when to stop mattered as much as knowing when to push. The cavern's visible gold proved direction. The first heavy cleanup proved approach. The 72-hour sprint proved the vein could pay. The slide proved the ground still cast the last vote. The quiet closure proved discipline wins more than celebration. The ending leaves a question that numbers cannot close. Was this the last great score in a long northern story, or the start of a new chase that will pull other crews into the cold with promises and pressure? Legends do not die, they doze. Somewhere under another ridge, a vein hums in silence, waiting for plans bold enough and careful enough to test it. The North will keep writing, because that is what it does. It buries mistakes. It measures patience. It rewards stubborn, careful work. It never bargains. The widow's cut stands as a reminder that tough ground can still be fair if treated with respect. It also stands as a warning that greed is louder than wisdom, and winter always gets a vote. For more stories from real ground, hard lessons, clean wins, and legends dragged into daylight, subscribe to Gold Era 2.0 so no new chapter is missed and every deep dive lands when it matters. The line between myth and rock turned into a season total that speaks for itself here. More lines like that are coming, and they belong to those ready to listen to the land before asking it to pay.